Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, where today we are picking the perfect signings for Arne Slot's Liverpool this summer. Coming up on today's show, hear about the former Premier League striker who would be the ideal replacement for Darwin Nunez.
I don't want to say he reminds me of Firmino because he's selfless, but I think he's got the desire and the happiness to go like, Salah, you go get 30, Gakpo, you get 20, and I'll chip in with 15.
Whether Jeremie Frimpong would work as a Trent replacement.
Him in a back four. Like, he's just basically never played there.
And who would be the perfect upgrade for Andy Robertson.
Basically had equal time in his career playing as a left wing back and as a more traditional fullback. Tactically, he's quite versatile.
Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, and joining myself and Mikey McCubbin today, we have returning hero Nubaid Haroon. Nubaid, welcome back.
Hero, I love it. Thank you. Good to be back on.
Well, you deserve a hero's welcome because you're a Liverpool fan. We're discussing all things Liverpool. I mean, you must be delighted.
It's been a weird season. I think that the narrative that's been sort of made around this team has made me almost question whether I can enjoy the end of this season. And then I saw the boys in Dubai and I was like, they're having a good time, so I'm having a good time. It's been strange though. It's been very, very odd because we've won the league, but it feels as though people are like, well, you should have won the league and everything else is a failure now, which is not true because at the start of the season, if someone said to me we were going to win the league, I would have said there's absolutely no chance of that happening. So I'm good.
Absolutely. I mean, Mikey, given the fact that their net spend this summer was £4.2 million, given the fact it was only Federico Chiesa who arrived permanently this summer, who's barely played at all in the Premier League, actually barely played in any competition, how much credit does Slot deserve for managing this campaign with Salah, Van Dijk out of contract, with the Trent situation ongoing as well?
Yeah, huge. I mean, it just goes to show the emotional intelligence of the man and his ability to adapt as well. I think it shouldn't have really ever been up for debate, Arne Slot being the manager of the season. I know people were saying, oh, well, if Forest finished third or fourth, Nuno should be manager of the season. But I honestly think Slot has done a more impressive job in many respects. Nuno came into a Nottingham Forest setup, which had been bankrolled and, obviously has done an amazing job. But in terms of meeting expectations, I think that Nottingham Forest team, we're seeing it now, have dropped off quite a bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up finishing in the bottom half next season. I honestly wouldn't, given the strength of the mid-table.
Given the fact they've got European football next year as well.
Yeah, what Slot has done in a European season as well. Let's forget, I know Liverpool ultimately had a disappointing Champions League campaign, but they were brilliant in the group stages with a lot of tough fixtures that they came through on top of. To miss out on his top target in Martin Zubimendi in the summer, and then at short notice basically just make it work with Ryan Gravenberch, and overnight seeing him become one of the best midfielders in the league, if not Europe. There are just so many flashpoints where it could have gone wrong for Slot, or Liverpool could have dropped off, and it didn't. I think it's testament to him. Also, obviously, testament to Michael Edwards and the setup at Liverpool for getting the appointment right, because it does feel like, at least in terms of his manner, in terms of the way that he relates to people, it does feel like he just feels like such a natural successor to Klopp, but he hasn't let that. He hasn't let that be used against him. It's felt like a very natural progression, and he hasn't felt the need to completely change things, but he's been able to implement his ideas as well. So I think whatever happens from here, Slot's had an amazing, remarkable start to life, obviously, and I personally don't necessarily back Liverpool to win the league next year. I think it's going to be a lot tougher. But that doesn't take away from their achievement this year because, like Nubaid was saying, you wouldn't have given them a chance in hell at the start of the season.
I mean, 15 points clear, a 26-match unbeaten run in the middle of the season, longer than Pep ever went with a City side in a single season. Absolutely remarkable. They've won the league at a canter. But today, guys, we're going to focus on how they can retain the league next year and push on in the Champions League. Obviously, that disappointing display slightly against PSG in the Champions League didn't get over the line in the Carabao Cup final either. So there can be improvements to this Liverpool side, and that's what we're going to focus on today. You might have noticed that I'm wielding a coffee. I was up quite late celebrating Sunderland's win just in my living room, but coffee very much needed today. Let's talk, Nubaid, about the right-back situation. And first of all, a lot of Liverpool fans have felt quite angered by the reaction to the booing towards Trent and the fact that a lot of their online fan base, at least, are very frustrated with Trent's decision. What are your thoughts on Trent leaving now it's confirmed? Are you just looking to move on from it and look forward, or do you hold a bit of resentment?
I've already made myself so unpopular with Liverpool fans this week because I've said I didn't think the booing was right, but at the same time, I don't think anyone can tell anyone else how to feel. Yeah. But my opinion is that it wasn't fair because I think if at the start of his career at Liverpool knew how much he would contribute to this team, but eventually he would leave, I think they would have taken it. In a similar sense of when I said, like, for us to win the league, no one thought it was going to happen. I think the fact that Trent's also been such a contributing factor, and in my opinion, at times, he's won many games for us. It's not like he's just been a right back for us. He's an academy product. He's won trophies. He's been, at times, I'm thinking back to the Leicester game when we came back from, I can't remember where we were playing. I remember playing a random game abroad, and then 3 days later he comes back and drops an absolute clinic against Leicester at Leicester. He won us those games and got us into situations that normal defenders, right backs, don't do. And I think while the emotion right now is like heightened, I hope that what happens in the end is that people go, look, he's moved on, fair enough, like, hopefully he does well at Madrid. I don't think that's going to happen with Liverpool fans. I think the resentment's going to stick. But I hold no resentment towards him. I think he's done everything he wanted to do at Liverpool. He's achieved everything possible. And I think it's just like, it's one of those where it's like, it's time to move on. And it could have been much more harmonious. It's just not going to be. I just wonder what happens if he plays for Madrid against Liverpool, like, and scores the winner and celebrates. Like, the fans have kind of put him in a situation where he probably wants to do that now. And so I'm like, his hands are tied, basically. I just feel like sad about the whole situation, really.
I think it's also like that's contributed as well to this end of season feeling at Liverpool of like, yeah, it should be just like pure jubilation, which I think for most people it is, to be fair. But the fact that Trent's situation wasn't resolved, and then like just the uncertainty around it, and then the announcement, it was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of weird. There was this kind of weird jarringness to like him celebrating winning the league, and then will obviously be part of the trophy parade and everything. But then, you know, this kind of bad blood between Liverpool fans and him.
It's just sad because during a trophy parade, like, he's probably just going to have to hide away from the edges of the bus, and he's contributed to this title. And also, I think we haven't just won this title because we're good for this one season. He's contributed to this team getting to this point. And that's where I'm just like, it's just a very sad ending, and I'm hoping when the parade comes around, tempers are a bit more chilled, and I think people in person aren't as like volatile as the people online, so I'm hoping it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of strange things, if you can hear any sort of tunnelling below us, I don't know what is quite going on. It feels like we are being tunnelled underneath, but hopefully we'll stay standing here or stay sitting here. Let's talk about the right back situation, because in the last few days it does now seem more than likely that Liverpool are going to sign Jeremie Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen. Now, this is a guy with a €35 million release clause, an amazingly low release clause for a player of this quality. That's around £29 million. And the last 4.5 years at Leverkusen, who he joined from Celtic after coming through the academy at Man City, kind of couldn't have gone any better for him. Like, he's averaged 0.4 goals and assists per game in that time. Obviously, last season, the real highlight, lost 1 of 53 games, Leverkusen that year, unbeaten in the league and German Cup, losing to Atalanta in the Europa League final was the one blemish. And he was a huge, huge part of that. 12 goals, 14 assists. But I think most of the concerns come, if there are any concerns about this transfer, and the fact that he is a right wing back, really a right wing back, / been used
almost
even
as
a right winger,
really.
Has never really played, at least at Bayer Leverkusen, as a right back in a back four. And this is a guy who is frighteningly fast going forwards, but is very, very different from Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's not a physical athlete. Well, he's an athlete in the same way, but his game isn't based around speed. It's based around incisive passing, through balls, long balls, etc. So there is a little bit of a concern there. Leverkusen, for anyone wondering why they've had a bit of a drop-off this year, I think the situation around Victor Boniface, who nearly went to a Saudi Arabian club, has kind of distracted them slightly. He's slightly gone off the boil. Their big summer signings, and Alex Garcia and Martin Terrier, didn't really become key parts. They lost Stanisic and Kosunu. Stanisic was only on loan. He went back to Bayern Munich. Kosunu went to Atalanta on loan. And they weren't a disaster. They only lost 3 league games, but they played an expanded Champions League campaign, and they just drew too many games. They ended up drawing 11. Didn't in the end get that close to Bayern Munich. But given that it's just their third top 2 finish since 2002, it's by no means a poor season. And Jeremie Frimpong was very good again this year. But Nubaid, do you have those concerns that he is so different from Trent, or is this just the the fact that we haven't really seen what a slot player is in terms of what he wants in each position, because he didn't get that summer last year where he was able to change the team.
I would say, if I'm trying to be super positive, that if Slot trusts this guy, then I'm going to trust him too. But I do think profile for profile and the way football's played now, they couldn't be further apart if we tried. Like, Jeremie Frimpong is effectively a winger. Like, whenever I've watched Bayer Leverkusen, he's generally not worrying about what's behind him, which is already a worry with Trent, apparently. And so I'm going, like, this is like this tenfold. And also the lack of experience playing in a back four versus playing in a back five is very, very different for him as well. The one thing I would say is, one, he's still young, so he's moldable. And two, because he is like almost a freak of an athlete, kind of like Kyle Walker in some ways, he can learn the other side of his game. The other worry I think you didn't mention is the Salah worry. Like, if you've got Salah in front of you, you don't need a right winger. You actually need to vacate space so Salah can do what he wants to do. There's been talk online about Salah coming and playing a bit more inside, but I don't love Salah inside. I think when he isolates fullbacks is when he's most dangerous. But at the same time, and we're going to talk about other options, there isn't many other options. And if you think about world-class fullbacks, and he is a fullback, he's in that category because there isn't that many. And therefore, I think they've just gone like, what's the best thing in the shop available? We'll have to go with him and figure out what we do after.
Yeah, it's a real market opportunity, isn't it? It kind of feels like, just sign him. You've got a really good, you've got an amazing coach at Liverpool. Like, just work out what to do with them afterwards. Yeah. Maybe just see, like, because there are those options, aren't there? Like, you never know. Like, Slot could decide, you know what? Actually, let's actually, spend decent money on a centre back this summer, shore up that back line properly, and maybe we go for a wing back system because we have the midfielders who are capable. Like, I think Gravenberch and McAllister would be capable of doing that if you had a kind of bit of a box midfield attack. Yeah, I see your concerns with Salah, but like, he is. There are many parts to his game in which he plays like an inside forward. If you had him and Frimpong overlapping each other, that would be pretty scary. So, like, I don't know. I think he gives you a lot of options there, but like, I have the same concerns. Like, him in a back four, like, he's just basically never played there. And it's like, people like to get on about Trent's defending. Like, Frimpong just doesn't do it. Like, it's not like, Trent, it's like, like there are a few big games you can pick out here and there where he gets done by, Jeremy Doku, for example, this season or whatever. Like, he has had some tough games. I think it's over-egged how many tough games he's had. But with Trent plays as a right back. Like, Jeremie Frimpong just doesn't. It doesn't. It feels like it would feel like a bit of a waste just to put him in a back four. I'm not really sure why you would sign him for that reason. And
it does feel pretty likely that this transfer will be done. But we did want to talk about some other options if it's not. I mean, Mikey, who would be your suggestion if Frimpong couldn't happen?
I mean, like Nubaid was saying, there aren't very many options out there.
Struggling.
This is the problem. And so I went for a real stopgap. Someone who could be available on a free this summer, Kenny Tete. Now, that contract negotiations, are happening at Fulham, but nothing's been announced yet. And so there is, if you were to, there's the possibility of being able to hijack those negotiations.
Is this as a backup to Conor Bradley? Is that what you're thinking?
I think it would just be someone who can go toe to toe with Conor Bradley, to be honest. I know Kenny Tete's injury record isn't the best, but neither is Conor Bradley's. I just think he's turned 30 this year. He's a very, very solid Premier League defender. His tackles and interceptions per 90 minutes haven't dropped below 4.5 since he signed for Fulham back in 2020. Part of a really solid backline this year that's had to deal with, of course, the sale of João Palhinha last summer. Him and Anthony Robinson have been superb. At least when Tete's been fit, he would just be very solid and very cheap, and you could get him in on a 2 to 3 year deal, and I don't think it would hurt the club at all. It wouldn't block Conor Bradley's development as well. But I kind of made the suggestion almost as an extra to Jeremie Frimpong. I honestly think if you sign Jeremie Frimpong, you also kind of need to sign another right back anyway, unless you're gonna just entrust Joe Gomez as the primary right back when Conor Bradley's not fit. But then you need to sign at least one more centre back this summer, and I'm not sure we'll have time to get to sign a centre back given the other areas that we want to look at today. So yeah, that was my thinking behind it. But yeah, by no means an ideal situation.
You know what's really strange? When you were obviously Kenny Tete, because we had Trent, will be very underwhelming for fans to take on. But if you sign players in other areas, you can get away with the
especially if you sign a super attacking left back as well. You kind of need that right back to be very very defensively sound.
It's a very Liverpool signing, to like compromise something else. They'll compromise a different area. So when you were talking through it, I was like, I didn't like it at first, and as it went on, I was like, if it means we can get, I don't know, I don't mind getting
a real top class striker. Where was your thinking debate?
Well, I love Conor Bradley, but I do think like injury record wise has not been great, but also I think he was thrown in when Trent was injured, and it worked out really well. But I think when he's had a consistent run of games, so he's going to have to play 40 plus games next season. Naturally, that's going to affect his performances. So I went and basically looked at every right back I've ever seen, and I was like, there must be one we can sign, and landed at Ivan Fresneda. And profile-wise, I don't think he matches up very similar to Frimpong or even Kenny Tete or even Trent. His game is not about like hitting diags. But then I was also thinking there isn't another player like Trent. Trent's a unicorn. There is one, but I will come to him, but we can't sign him, basically. But Fresneda being young, I was looking at like the wingers in the Premier League, the amount of physicality they have, not only sort of to run in behind, but also like just to constantly go for 90 plus minutes. Semenyo, Saka, like every team's got one or two. Fresneda can deal with that. His physicality's in a good place. He's also decent in possession. And he's also calm in possession, which is very vital for Slot's teams. I think we struggled this year on the opposite side with Robertson because in possession he didn't really know what he wanted to do with the ball. Fresneda's fine. And he can also play as a emergency centre-back. So it's a very Liverpool signing to sign a guy who can do like other jobs. The dream sign is Pedro Porro. It's not going to happen, but that would be the one.
That's the other thing with Frimpong as well. It's like he very much is not like he doesn't invert. And like Slot does like his right backs to step into midfield, where like someone like Fresneda would be, like you said, more comfortable with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yeah. It feels like Jeremie Frimpong's more than likely might even happen before this video goes live, but let's see what happens there. Striker, I think, is a really interesting one. Nubaid, why don't you kick off with this? Because Darwin Nunez and Diogo Jota, I don't think have had great individual campaigns. What are you doing with them, and where are you looking in this market?
I wish I could say we should keep Darwin, but I think like there comes a point where it's got to work or it's just not working. And I actually think he'll be fine elsewhere. Like I think if he goes to Saudi, he probably ends up playing in Spain at some point. We might see him play for Atletico like in 2 or 3 years and go, wow, Liverpool should have kept him. I think that's what's going to happen eventually. Jota, again, I love him. I think he's so good when he's fit. The issue is he's just not ever fit for a really long period. And I think this year, especially when Salah's form has tailed off a little bit, you've looked at the front three and gone, like, no one's willing to wear this burden. And then I was sort of scouting around and landed at Julian Alvarez, who I loved when he was at Man City. I was stunned when they sold him. Yeah. I think when Haaland wasn't available, he dropped into that role and wore it on his shoulders like so well. When De Bruyne wasn't available, he went and played behind Haaland. He's so adaptable. And I don't want to say he reminds me of Firmino because he's selfless, but I think he's got the desire and the happiness to go like, Salah, you go get 30, Gakpo, you get 20, and I'll chip in with 15, while also like pressing and doing all the legwork for the other forwards. To me, that's the dream. Like I know people are saying Isak, but I personally, I don't think there's a preference, but style-wise, I think he's the one for Liverpool.
Expensive though.
But yeah, they signed him for, was it 80 million?
81, yeah, I think.
So it's like, they're not going to sell him for 90. And he had a really good season. I think he got 15 goals in the league and I think 6 or 7 assists. So he's going to be expensive. But one of these signings will be expensive. So if it is Kenny Tete at right back, we get Julian Alvarez. Tete.
I think if Liverpool are going to sign a striker this summer, like many teams after strikers, it's going to be at least 60, 70 million, right? Like I don't think Liverpool can. I don't think there's really that much point in Liverpool shopping in the kind of undervalued section for strikers because they're just, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be anyone who's going to be able to up what you would get with say Jota for another season if he stays fit for that price. I think you have to go. I think you have to go for it, especially with City. Well, especially with Arsenal probably signing a lights out centre forward this summer as well.
Sure, it just feels like Atleti will be asking for £100 million plus, and I just don't know whether Liverpool do that given the amount of other areas they need to strengthen as well, whether they're going to do something a little bit more cost effective in that striking area. I mean, Mikey, who would you suggest?
Yeah, I thought this was tough actually, because it's tempting to go down the kind of, Firmino 2.0 route. Obviously, strikers like Osimhen and Gyökeres are also there, but do they work with Salah necessarily? Probably Osimhen more than Gyökeres, but I'm yet to see Gyökeres, play alongside a goal scoring winger. And yeah, I think you need someone whose link up play is going to really benefit Salah. Like, for example, like Nunez, for all his faults, especially towards the start of this season and last season, I thought had an amazing connection with Salah, and that really served him well, even when he wasn't scoring. I've gone for Benjamin Sesko at Leipzig. I know he's a target for Arsenal as well.
Arteta wants him over Gyökeres.
In many ways, I'm not surprised. But I think in some ways, Liverpool is a better fit for him, at least in terms of where he's at in his career. I think Arsenal, whoever they sign, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to score 15 plus in a season. Now, Sesko is perfectly capable of doing that because, since he's broken through at Salzburg, he's never not hit double figures in a season. The fact that he's, 22, I think at the end of this month, and has hit double figures in his last 3 seasons, I think, speaks volumes. He consistently overperforms his XG. He's a really, really good finisher. Obviously, he has a rocket of a shot. He's really big. He's really fast. He's equally good at hold-up play, linking up with other attackers, and also playing off the last man as well. So there's a variety to his game as well. I wonder, I guess the drawback is, would he start taking up positions that, say, someone like Dominic Szoboszlai does classically in this Liverpool team? That would maybe be a slight worry, but I just honestly think with most top strikers these days, that's something you're going to have to deal with. Like most top strikers that are on the market do like to play a bit of football as well. And I think the advantage with Sesko is that, he's only 21 years old right now. If he comes into this Liverpool team, he doesn't need to fire straight away because you've got Salah for the next 2 years at least. Salah doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon. I back Luis Diaz to have a better goal scoring season next season. Cody Gakpo, I think, has been quite underrated in this Liverpool team this year in terms of his goal scoring exploits, and can also fill in at centre forward if needs be. With someone like Sesko, Liverpool, you've got that time. At Arsenal, if you come in as a 21-year-old striker and you don't hit the ground running, the pressure's on, man. The pressure is really on because the pressure's going to be massively on Arteta next season. We that narrative is already very, very present, both among kind of neutrals and Arsenal fans. That is all that's being talked about, is how much pressure there is going to be to win a major piece of silverware next season. So coming into the Premier League and having to adapt to a new style of football and a new team, and with that pressure as well, and being expected to score that many goals, I would really not envy Sesko. Whereas at Liverpool, you're entering a camp where there really isn't that much pressure. And even if you are feeling the pressure, it's like, Salah's going to score a ton of goals anyway, so it doesn't matter too much, and I can just develop my game. So I think Sesko to Liverpool would be a great move for the player, and I think stylistically he would fit Liverpool as well.
They've got a much deeper front line, haven't they, with Gakpo, with Diaz there as well. Arsenal are looking potentially to bring in 2 starters this summer and hope that it clicks instantly. Odegaard gets back to form. There's just so much more unknown with this Arsenal front line for next year, and maybe they'll still back Havertz at the start of next season. But if you're bringing in one of these top strikers that everyone keeps on talking about, they are going to start the majority of games as well. Again, I feel like I'm going for the tap-ins because I got Jeremie Frimpong, but I actually think there's a very good chance that Hugo Ekitike joins Liverpool this summer. There has been a lot of reports that Premier League clubs, A, are very interested in him, and B, that he is very up for going if they secure Champions League football, Eintracht Frankfurt. And the thing that impresses me most about him is not the fact that he's had a little bit of experience at a top club at PSG, and he played very much like third or fourth fiddle there, maybe even fifth or sixth, really. But it's the way he kind of took the team on his mantle, on his shoulders, really, after Omar Marmoush left in January. He's played 15 games since and scored 6 and assisted 4, which is really pretty impressive. Kept Eintracht Frankfurt in the hunt for automatic qualification for the top 4 as well. They play 4th placed Freiburg away on the final day. Huge ramifications of that for both sides. But this season, 22 goals and 11 assists in 47 games. quite similar stylistically to Alexander Isak as well. Very comfortable going out wide, can play in a counter-attacking system. You saw against Spurs in that Europa League game as well, very comfortable kind of shooting, getting the ball away from his feet and instantly whipping it in as well. Only one of his 15 league goals have been penalties, which I thought was impressive as well. And does have a really complete game. Expected assist 0.24. That's the same as Phil Foden this year. It's the same as Morgan Rogers. I really like his all-round game. And I think the reason people would be nervous was, well, Eintracht Frankfurt, Marmoush, Jovic, who else? Kostic was great there. Haller. Like, they've sold very effectively. Kolomwani as well. And very few of these players, even Marmoush to a certain extent, has kind of exploded at their next club, let's say. But I think given his age and given his skill set right now, and given the fact that in a different way to when Jovic had Haller there or Marmoush when he had Ekitike alongside him, he's very much the one-man guy at the moment. And I think he'd really thrive in this Liverpool team.
Would you say, I was looking at him as well and I thought he's doing really well now, but I always have a concern about players who, like, basically he runs the team. Like, everything is through him. He's the best player by a country mile. Kind of similar to Omar Marmoush, but they were both there at the same time. And then also when he was at PSG, he didn't even get a look in. Now, obviously, PSG at that time were going through turmoil and they weren't in the right place. But I always think, like, at a team like that, the talent sometimes does rise to the top. And so I kind of go, he could potentially be like a big fish in a tiny pond. And that's why it didn't work at PSG. Or PSG was just a false narrative. It didn't work for him there because it's PSG. And now he's doing really well. And then you got to come to Liverpool.
I see what you mean. I think on the PSG issue, I think he'd only been playing regularly for Reims for a year and a half. Yeah. Really not that much. And he was, 18, maybe even 19 at the time. Like, really, really very raw at the time. And I remember he was linked with Newcastle. And I remember looking at him at the time and thought, oh, they must have really scouted this guy because you're kind of going off potential right now. They didn't get him. Instead, they signed Alexander Isak and everyone knows what happens next. But actually, it feels like their careers are quite intertwined because their games are quite similar in many ways. In terms of coming to Liverpool as well, I think I kind of echo Mikey's thoughts as well. It's an easier squad to join than a lot of others in terms of the pressure instantly on you. And yeah, I just think his game is very complete. At the moment, over 1 expected goals and assists per 90. That's 6th in Europe. It's only just less than Mbappe. And this is a Frankfurt side that no one expected to have the season they have as well. I think this could be done, and I think it wouldn't be a surprise if it was to Liverpool. I think he will end up in the Premier League this summer. And I think it's worth looking at as well. So there we have it. We've got Julian Alvarez. We've got, who was yours again, Mikey?
Sesko.
Sesko or Ekitike. Why don't we leave it to the fans? Get in the comments. Which one of those do you want to see most? If money was no object, I'd be signing Julian Alvarez every day of the week. But let's see what happens. Right, let's talk left back because, Nubaid, you touched on it. Andy Robertson, amazing servant for the club, but difficult season for sure. Do you want Andy Robertson to stay at the club and be phased into second choice and Tsimikas leaves? And who would you want to arrive as the new left back?
I think, to be fair to Andy Robertson, he's had a lot of stick this season. And I actually don't think he's been anywhere near as bad as what people say. But because his level was up here, he was the best left back in the world for 2 seasons at least. And he literally gave everything he had. You can see now that he's suffering a little bit physically. And I don't think that's actually held him down as much as what people say. I think the only demand on him that he's not been able to fulfill, which if you remember at the start of the season when we played Ipswich, he underlapped Van Dijk. Do you remember, like, Gary Neville did a whole segment on, like, why is this happening? And I think as the season went on, he kind of realised that that's not his job. And there were times where he was just in the wrong position because that's not ever been his game. He's a physical specimen. And so the issue I have with Andy Robertson going is I think you need experience. Like, if you lose Trent in the same window you lose Robertson, and our game has been built on fullbacks for such a long time, like, you lose the identity of what this team was. So I think he probably gets phased into number 2. But then the left back I want to bring in doesn't make sense because Frimpong's coming. So like my plan was to have a more defensive right back and a more attacking left back because to me, Milos Kerkez makes the most sense. He's besties with Szoboszlai. He's in the comments every day, guys. And that has convinced me. Every single day, they're commenting back and forth to each other.
He's a Richard Hughes signing as well. Like,
yeah.
Again, this feels like a bit of a tap-in, Kerkez.
But this is my worry is, like, there's a lot of tap-ins happening. Liverpool don't do tap-ins in the transfer window. So there's going to be, like, a wild card from somewhere. But I think we've seen him in the Premier League. He's shown that he's physical enough, which I think has been an issue, in my opinion, for Liverpool. This season, we've been a little bit timid at times. And I think he's shown that he can get forward. He can provide assists and goals at times. He's technically so good. And also, having played for Bournemouth, I always look at, like, styles of teams. And our styles they're not mirrored. But it's not like he's played for, I want to say Everton, not deliberately, but Everton's the first one that comes to my mind. And also with Fulham, Anthony Robinson was being considered, but I looked at the age profiles. Yeah. But as I say, my worry, and I'm hoping you guys have other left backs, is that you can't have Frimpong and Milos Kerkez in the same team unless you change system or unless something happens for this to work. So while I'm saying he's the left back I want to go for, I'm also saying I don't know if it works.
Yeah, because you're looking at potentially dropping Szoboszlai maybe, then playing McAllister further forward in a much more defensively minded midfielder alongside Gravenberch to make that work. I completely agree. I don't think you sign Kerkez and Frimpong and play them as traditional fullbacks, at least. It just feels like a kamikaze. Mikey, did that impact your thinking?
I found it quite tough actually to find like a pure defensive left backs. Like if Frimpong arrives again, I kind of stand by it. I don't think Frimpong plays as a right back in this Liverpool team, unless you are going to sign, like almost a left centre back to play left back,
like a Joel Hatto or someone.
Yeah, like which I guess is a possibility, right? But again, very very young to be bringing in as a starter in that back line. Hatto, I wanted to go for someone with more experience. And I settled on David Raum again at Leipzig. I'm slightly pillaging them, but
it's a good place to shop.
It is a good place to shop. I actually think Kerkez, has at least he does play in a back four, and actually he is a feisty defender. He's got really good recovery pace, and he really is not afraid to go in like with a big challenge. So I think there is, I think if he can refine his game a little bit, and just the more coaching that he gets. I honestly think Kerkez and Frimpong could make it work in that team. I think because I think Kerkez, given a bit more of a I guess given more defensive instruction, when you're in a team like that, you don't need to do as much attacking anyway because other players are doing it for you. I think he could still be a real asset to that Liverpool team. But David Raum, I just think. He's been brilliant for so many years, and brilliant passer, has consistently ranked among the top fullbacks in Europe for crosses into the box. Passing from deep, really really good as well. So you get back a little bit more what you're missing out on with Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving. He really broke onto the scene in the 21-22 season when he joined Hoffenheim from Greuther Fürth, and it was really quite an amazing step up from the second tier to the first tier of German football. I think it was 3 goals and 11 assists in that first season, then got his move to Leipzig, which didn't go very well to begin with, but then in the last 2 seasons, he's really grown into himself again. And what I like about Raum mainly is the fact that he has basically had equal time in his career playing as a left wing back and as a more traditional fullback. So tactically, he's quite versatile. If you were to bring Frimpong in and you wanted to change system, then Raum would be able to do that. If you were to bring Frimpong in and you wanted to play him further forward, then Raum could play as a more traditional left back. He is better as a wing back, is the only thing I'd say. And at Leipzig, generally, when he has played as a left back, you've often had Simakan playing as the right back, who's really more of a centre back. So in that sense, you would maybe have to adapt your style a little bit more, but I'm also thinking the width that he can provide on the left would be really important, given that most of, Liverpool's players on the left like to cut inside. So again, not the most ideal candidate, but again, like with the right backs, there's not a huge amount to choose from on the left, at least if you want someone with a bit of experience.
Nice. Well, I think the thing is, with having worked with someone for so long, like me and Mikey, your brains are often quite aligned. And I've picked David Raum's rival at Germany, which is Max Mittelstädt, who plays as Stuttgart's left back. Now, he's been there for 2 seasons. Prior to that, he broke through at Hertha Berlin. He spent 6 seasons there. Last season, Stuttgart were absolutely amazing. It was one of the best stories in Europe. I think if it wasn't for Bayer Leverkusen, they would have got a lot more credit. They finished second in the Bundesliga ahead of Bayern Munich. This season was a little bit of a struggle. They were playing in the Champions League. They lost Anton, they lost Itu, they lost Guirassy, of course, as well. But Max Mittelstadt's numbers have been really, really impressive. So 6 league goals and assists last year, 7 this year, plus 2 in the Champions League. And what he is most widely known for, in a different way to Raum, who is much better, maybe a consistent attacking threat and maybe a more incisive passer for deep, is yes, he's an amazing crosser. He completed the second most crosses in the entirety of Europe, but he's a really, really aggressive and solid defender. So he's at 4.5 defensive actions per 90. For context, Robertson this year is at 2. Like Robertson's defensive output, and it might be slightly role dependent as well and playing a more refined and sort of measured system than Klopp. But Robertson's defensive output has massively dropped off this year. Mittelstädt, very, very solid defender as well. His contract expires in 2028, so he would maybe cost a little bit of money, but at the moment, he's valued by Transfermarkt at around 20 million euros. You look at the fees that they sold Guirassy, Anton, Ito for. They didn't go for massive amounts of money. So I feel like maybe 30 to 35 million pounds, and you've got a 28-year-old, which again is why I don't think Liverpool might go for this. It feels like a little bit too old for Michael Edwards. But I think it's quite a smart, sort of low-risk signing that would kind of instantly come in and just look like a very solid Premier League addition. So I can see the attraction of Kerkez and that full throttle football. But if you wanted someone who has got great delivery from wide and is a very solid defender, which might well compensate for a Jeremie Frimpong, so on the right-hand side, then I think Max Mittelstädt is a good option.
Can I throw in a suggestion? While you were talking about left centre-backs who can also play left-back, I did have him written down, but I was like, it's never going to happen. But Piero Hincapié can play left-back, can play left-back of a back three, can also play left-side centre-back, which is not going to happen because Van Dijk's there. But if you want to play that system, he can play left back. He won't go forward. And then Frimpong can go do whatever he wants. Because at the moment, with all the fullbacks we're suggesting, I'm looking at the composition of this team, and the mic's going to go with me. But I'm like, Frimpong's here, and like the left back's somewhere here, and the centre backs are back here. And I'm the composition's off. So we might need to bring in someone who can sweep across and have a natural instinct to come into the box when the ball's on the opposite side.
And he certainly knows that game from playing with Frimpong himself as well.
That's the only issue that I was going to say is Leverkusen potentially, definitely losing Xabi Alonso, Frimpong potentially leaving, Wirtz looks more and more likely to leave as well. Tar looks like he's joining Bayern Munich. Did they let Hincapié go in the same summer as well? Maybe too much change, but
just give up all in one go. Guys, send them our way.
Complete rebuild under Cesc Fabregas. It looks like a harder and harder job. But yeah, that's our left back suggestions. Guys, let us know who you guys would go for. It feels like Kerkez is the main, probably the most likely option. Nubaid, I want to come to you on central midfield because it's been clear, and I think most of this is like injury related, but Endo and Elliott haven't really featured this year, particularly in midfield. I think they've each started one league game each. There has been talk online in particular about Szoboszlai and whether he could be upgraded. I think Jamie Carragher even suggested that on Sky. In terms of central midfield, what area do you think Slot will go for? Will he go for that Zubimendi style player that he didn't get last summer, or do you think he goes for a more all-rounder?
Unpopular opinion, I think Gravenberch was unbelievable this season, but I think we've seen towards the end of this season that he had to really perform out of his skin to sort of drag this midfield. And I don't think he's naturally a 6. And I'm still saying we need a 6. But equally, it could be a different type. Like, there's 2 types of 6s at the moment. I think you've got the 2 that I've written down. You've got Ederson at Atalanta, who's this destroyer, kind of a little bit of a box to box in recent times, but he can definitely just sit and basically break up play, make a ton of tackles, wins duels, aggressive, a little bit like in the Fabinho type mold. Doesn't really need the ball all the time. Will lend it to the better midfielders, and I think he'd make a great partner for McAllister. And basically, my midfield is built on getting more out of McAllister because I think McAllister is unbelievably good. But then there's also Adam Wharton, who I don't think will happen considering my sort of cost list here is probably close to 400 million. I mean, Liverpool never spend money that way. But I think the type of midfield Slot actually wants in there, like Zubimendi, is someone who's so comfortable in possession. And while I think Gravenberch developed into that this season where he was receiving the ball off his back foot and rolling players towards the end of the season, because he almost had only one move to get out of those situations, he was starting to get caught out, and the angle he wants the ball at is always from the centre-back into his left foot, whereas Wharton can pick it up on any side from anyone, and he's comfortable in possession. But then I have a slight worry about maybe defensively we still need someone in there who can win tackles and patrol around and is a bit of a physical specimen. So Ederson and Wharton, 2 polar opposite ends. I don't think Wharton will happen. I don't think Liverpool have the financial capacity for a Wharton. But I do think that's the one for me. I know people are going to look at depth, but I think you also, if you bring in Ederson, you elevate Szoboszlai. Ederson wants to charge around and make tackles. Szoboszlai is getting asked to do so much legwork that I think Odegaard possibly commented on this before. It wasn't to do with Szoboszlai, but he said we get asked to do so much running that when we get the ball, like, you're shattered. So you're making wrong decisions mentally and physically.
It's different to 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and Szoboszlai, like, looks shattered when he gets the ball, and I'm kind of like, people are like, he never shoots. I'm like, doesn't want to burn his hamstrings out. Like, his hamstrings are knackered already. So those are the two that I've gone for. Adam Wharton would be delightful.
I know, I think it was on one of the first ever lowdowns we do. I think Mikey McCubbin recommended Adam Wharton to Liverpool.
Might have been our first ever show.
Might have been the first ever show. I think he's an absolutely amazing player. I cannot wait to watch him in action this weekend at the FA Cup final. I think it could well be one of the decisive games of his early stages of his career. He's obviously got a huge way to go, but I can't wait to see him in that game. Mikey, which sort of direction did you go? Did you think of more of the destroyer?
I had a similar dilemma to Nubaid actually. A couple of weeks ago, I suggested Carlos Baleba as a Liverpool signing. Again, like, I think he'd be an amazing fit. Not quite the passer that Wharton is, but at a similar age is so advanced in so many other areas of his game that I think it's only a matter of time, a year or two until we see him at a real elite club. But again, it's just so expensive. Like, Liverpool would have to pay up to £100 million for him in a similar way that they'd have to pay up to like 80 million for Wharton. So I took him off my list. I was also considering Angelo Stieler at Stuttgart.
Amazing.
But again, amazing all-round footballer. But I think Liverpool kind of already have that in midfield. And I kind of went down the destroyer route as well. Was considering Hjulmand at Sporting, but his defensive numbers actually haven't been that amazing this year. So I went for someone who's Premier League proven, only by a year, but has had a really good season, I think, and that's Andre at Wolves. Nice. Previously linked with Liverpool as well. 2 summers ago, they were seemingly in for him. Didn't happen, but now he's got that Premier League experience, has played in a struggling team, but has very quickly formed a really good bond with João Gomez in that midfield, and was very used to sweeping up for him. A little bit like we were saying with McAllister, like, I think this is someone who can really let the players around him shine. He's averaging nearly 5 tackles and interceptions this year. I think he would be cheaper than a lot of other options. I know Wolves only signed him last summer, but if they could make double what they paid for him, you're still spending under £50 million on him. And I think Wolves, although they are most likely selling Cunha this summer, if Man United stump up the money, the PSR Wolf is not too far away from the door. Even though I think they're pretty much they're clear for this summer, but all it takes is a couple of big signings and suddenly you're thrown back in there. So I think it would be in their interests in many ways to sell while he's hot. Not saying that they definitely will sell this summer, but I think he's the kind of profile you're looking at. 23 years old. Is there for the long term, doesn't have to start every game. And I think that's maybe slightly where it is with Gravenberch as well. I think, partly why his performance has dropped off towards the end of the season is that he's not really played much football in the last 2 years. That time at Bayern Munich, he was barely getting a game. First year at Liverpool, he was barely getting a game. So to then have to play that elongated Champions League campaign and with the Premier League, I know the
basically
pressure,
every game.
With very little backup. I'm not surprised that he is where he's at. So to have someone like Andre who can fill in, and you don't have to have that same pairing every single game, I think would be great. And that also means that I think Curtis Jones can swap with Szoboszlai in the more advanced role, because I really like. I know Curtis Jones is a great all-round midfielder, but I do really like him in a more advanced role. Yeah,
I think he's a brilliant footballer. I do think it's fair to say that Liverpool, everyone says, they got so lucky with injuries. I don't think they did. They got lucky in midfield, though. Like McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai all started over 27 games. Curtis Jones made a good impact there, but those were the only 4 they really used in midfield. The player I'm suggesting, I'm actually not that hot on it compared to your 2 options, if I'm totally honest, but it's Manuel Locatelli at Juventus, who can play as a 6, who can play as an 8, and potentially not a Michael Edwards style signing. But whenever I think of Locatelli, I always go back to Euro 2020, which took place in 2021 because of COVID, but he was phenomenal there for Italy. And I think he's coming towards the end of his 4th season at Juventus. Juve don't seem to be going anywhere particularly quickly. The Thiago Motta experiment didn't work out. Igor Tudor, it's not clear whether he's going to be given the long-term position there. And Locatelli is rarely injured. He started at least 30 league games in each of the last 6 seasons. He's a very, very good passer from deep and can mix it physically as well. And could be, I think Juve, they've still got ambitions to return to where they are, but I imagine, I don't know, £45 million maybe for Locatelli, which might make way
that's quite
for...
steep.
Do you think that's more than you could be?
I don't know. I just think that's quite expensive for a player who
at his
is
stage of his career. Yeah, maybe they'd argue it down, and that's why I'm less hot on it, to be honest, given his age. But he does have some real top-level experience with Juventus and Italy, and can do a little bit of everything in midfield as well, and just feels like a much more natural fit for this Liverpool midfield than Endo, who Slot just clearly doesn't really rate at all.
I think the issue Liverpool have had this season is that, like, when you replace Gravenberch, the drop-off to Endo, and I think Endo's great for what he does, and we saw that in the previous year, but the drop-off's too big, and I think, like, a Locatelli, for example, didn't actually occur to me, because I've almost, like, forgot that he exists, because Juve almost don't exist at the moment. And so when you mentioned it, I was like, he can play in various different roles, he can play in various different positions, he's handy. My only concern would be, like, with Andre, he can charge around. Liverpool's midfield has always needed legs, and I think with McAllister, they've asked him to do too much this season, and if you want the best of him in possession, you need someone next to him that can move. And I think Locatelli's kind of like one of these players that in his younger years, I was like, he can definitely get about. But now I think as more I watch him, I'm like, he actually just wants to ping a ball around like a five-a-side footballer and go like, you just run for me. And I think Liverpool probably need to balance that out. But again, Liverpool will sign a player like that where we're like, why did we get that guy?
Yeah.
So will it be Kenny Tete? Or will it be Locatelli?
maybe. I think it is a good point, given the fact that a succession of Juventus managers have kind of always paired Locatelli somewhere around Weston McKennie, who is just a complete like Duracell bunny. That's it. That's his game. He's an athlete. Locatelli much more composed and has been a goal-scoring midfielder in the past at Sassuolo in his early days at Juve. Now, as you say, much more languid. So let's see where they go in terms of midfielders. Guys, thank you so much for watching the Lowdown this week. I hope you guys enjoyed our suggestions for Arne Slot's Liverpool this summer. Let us know whether we missed any out, whose suggestions you preferred. We didn't really gamify it this week. It was just a nice chat around who we thought could come in. If you guys have enjoyed watching Nubaid, where can they find your stuff?
I think everything. If you just type in Nubaid Haroon, I want to say I'm the only one in the world with that name.
Really?
Yeah, I Facebook it like every other year. I'm like, it's still me. It's still me.
Wow. One of one. I love it. There's a few Critchleys kicking around. There's a Critchley that works for Sky, who's a golf commentator actually. Must be some distant relative, and of course Neil Critchley, who keeps on getting fired from managerial jobs as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching the Lowdown for this week. We'll catch you next week. Bye bye.